send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. Blockchains, knock him out the box, I'm on Doc's main. Key ring full of wallet data. I gotta pray that my ASIC incinerators blow the mind like a creeper one time in my circus divine. A fine way to keep the power bill in check. My equipment is starting to sweat from the heat. Cryptoanarchy becoming a threat. So you know rappers like to rock pools. I got fools who can't swim in, but I'm collecting a spice like a Fremen. So you fools get stepping and get to choosing your weapon, because the deafening roar of indefinite war is epic. I found a new way to debit the people. I generate an address and I generate a sequel. I get medieval when I'm taking payments, cause I don't want the NSA all stuck up in my anus. Yeah, and I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. You know rappers like to sell drugs, but you do it on the streets and you did it in Google Buzz or Google Plus. There's a road made of silk if you must. Get your hustle out of chemical rush, avoiding the brush with the law. Can stop them all cause they got it anonymous. The ones that play it stupid, they get thrown in the bottomless pit. Don't even know how to cut up them layers of the onion. So let the players play pumpkin, hash function, pumping and dumping. Manipulate the market, flooded from the darknet, flooded from the deep web, keep it a secret. Every exchange got the nerdy brains trading on the frequent. Wonder where the league went. They left the cement, looking for the promised land, online beaming. Up Scotty, this the future, decentralized swag. Keep the work in your laptop bag. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. You know rappers can't pay bills, face the tax implications of evasion when they stack meals. Got a homie field deuce one, taught me the solution. Dumping all this knowledge from the booth, son. Anyone can learn it if you put in the work and research on how to line up just a fraction of your worth in the dirt. Like Jesus said, keep your funds under verse, cause there ain't no telling when that bubble go in the verse. You know rappers say they about the future, but you ain't Marty McFly till you buy kombucha from a supermarket with them Bitcoins. Till you get your Charlie Sheen greens off computer screens from the Philippines. Cry them leaves, knocked off Louis V's. Try to freeze my assets, long on is the cash in the mattress. Now it's all tied up in hashes, wrapped up in encrypted badges. And I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. You know rappers like to rock chains. I rock blockchains, knock him out the box, I'm on Doc's main. Key ring full of wallet data. I gotta pray that my ASIC incinerators blow the mind like a creeper one time in my circus divine. A fine way to keep the power bill in check. My equipment is starting to sweat from the heat. Cryptoanarchy becoming a threat. So you know rappers like to rock pools. I got fools who can't swim in, but I'm collecting a spice like a Fremen. So you fools get stepping and get to choosing your weapon, because the deafening roar of indefinite war is epic. I found a new way to debit the people. I generate an address and I generate a sequel. I get medieval when I'm taking payments, cause I don't want the NSA all stuck up in my anus. Yeah, and I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison, and that's a nerdy living. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison. And that's a nerdy living. You know rappers like to sell drugs, but you do it on the streets and you did it in Google Buzz or Google Plus. There's a road made of silk if you must. Get your hustle out of chemical rush, avoiding the brush with the law. Can stop them all cause they got it anonymous. The ones that play it stupid, they get thrown in the bottomless pit. Don't even know how to cut up them layers of the onion. So let the players play pumpkin, hash function, pumping and dumping. Manipulate the market, flooded from the darknet, flooded from the deep web, keep it a secret. Every exchange got the nerdy brains trading on the frequent. Wonder where the league went. They left the cement, looking for the promised land, online beaming. Up Scotty, there's the future decentralized swag. Keep the work in your laptop bag. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison. And that's a nerdy living. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison. And that's a nerdy living. You know rappers can't pay bills, face the tax implications of evasion when they stack meals. Got a homie field deuce one, taught me the solution. Dumping all this knowledge from the booth, son. Anyone can learn it if you put in the work and research on how to line up just a fraction of your worth in the dirt. Like Jesus said, keep your funds under verse, cause there ain't no telling when that bubble go in the verse. You know rappers say they about the future, but you ain't Marty McFly till you buck kombucha from a supermarket with them bitcoins. Till you get your Charlie Sheen greens off computer screens from the Philippines. Grab them leaves, knocked off Louis V's, try to freeze my assets. Long on is the cash in the mattress. Now it's all tied up in hashes, wrapped up in encrypted badges. And I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison. And that's a nerdy living. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison. And that's a nerdy living. Rock blockchains, knock 'em out the box, I'm on Doc's main. Key ring full of wallet data. I gotta pray that my ASIC incinerators blow the mind like a creeper one time in my circus divine. A fine way to keep the power bill in check. My equipment is starting to sweat from the heat. Cryptoanarchy becoming a threat. So you know rappers like to rock pools. I got pools you can't swim in, but I'm collecting a spice like a Fremen. So you fools get stepping and get to choosing your weapon, because the definite roar of indefinite war is epic. I found a new way to debit the people. I generate an address and I generate a sequel. I get medieval when I'm taking payments, cause I don't want the NSA all stuck up in my anus. Yeah, I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison. And that's a nerdy living. I'm a Bitcoin baron, I'm staring the status quo. Got that crypto going at that foul upload. And the algorithm gon' get them until prison, send us all to prison.
So hi everyone, my name is Monis and I'm one of the members of the Greek cryptocurrency community. And I would like to welcome you all to our third global Bitcoin meetup, a joint community effort by the members of Bitcoin Greece, Bitcoin Pakistan, Bitcoin Milano, Bitcoin Munich, and our friends in Prague, Paralenil, Polis. So today is about unity and it's about learning stuff about Bitcoin. I hope you enjoy the presentations. They are made by the communities for the communities. And I hope by the end of the day, you know more about Bitcoin. So I'm just going to kick it off with our friends in Pakistan. Farooq, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. So you are the only country being represented in Asia on this meetup. So you get to go first, and we're all very curious to learn about Bitcoin's use in Pakistan and everything you need to share. So from our side, I just want to say thank you for preparing the presentation, and the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Monis, and thank you everyone, all the communities putting this together. And I'm very happy to share the knowledge, what's happening with the Bitcoin situation in Pakistan and how the things are moving over here in this part of the world. So let me share my screen and start the presentation. Sure. Just give me a second, please.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So the purpose of this presentation is not like a technical presentation. It's just the information and how things are happening in terms of Bitcoin in Pakistan especially, and also the other similar countries like developing countries just like Pakistan. So so for those who don't know about Pakistan, Pakistan is the 5th largest country by population. It's like 250 million people living in Pakistan, and mostly they are young people. And Pakistan is also the 4th largest freelancing, the growing community in the world. A lot of freelancers working from Pakistan for other countries internationally, and they are working remotely and for part-time jobs and full-time jobs for countries like United States and Europe. And Pakistan still doesn't have a international payment system. Like PayPal doesn't work in Pakistan, Apple Pay doesn't work in Pakistan. So these freelancers working from Pakistan for other countries, they are having issues receiving payments, international payments in Pakistan. So, and also about the banking network in Pakistan, half of the population of Pakistan is unbanked. It is a lot of, it's an issue for Pakistani people. It's very hard for, without, banking services to conduct businesses, international transaction for freelancers and other working community. And Pakistan also have double digits inflation, just like other developing countries. And that's also a big issue. So Bitcoin in Pakistan, the current situation of Bitcoin in Pakistan is, when we talk about the Bitcoin's legality, Bitcoin is not legal and not illegal in Pakistan. It's kind of in a gray area where government doesn't understand this asset class, and they have no idea how to regulate it. They're still thinking about it. And the same goes for the State Bank of Pakistan. They don't understand what is this asset class and how to regulate it yet. The adoption, when we talk about how Bitcoin is being used and how Bitcoin is adopted by Pakistani people, the numbers are increasing each and every day. We see a lot of newbies, young people are welcoming this technology. They are using it for payment mechanism. They are freelancers, in Pakistan, they accept it as a payment method. And also some people use it as the inflation hedge because the Pakistani local currency isn't very stable. Businesses and other local individuals, they try to protect their wealth in, they buy US dollars or they would buy gold, and now they have the opportunity to buy Bitcoin. So they are taking it, using it as the inflation hedge as well. And also some of the community in Pakistan, the Bitcoin users, they take it as a long-term investment strategy. For example, the businesses and other individuals, they take it as a long-term investment strategy. So they're holding it for very long term. They are continually buying it and holding it. And how the Bitcoin is being traded in Pakistan is very different than other developed nations. For example, when we talk about United States and Europe, there are a lot of regulated exchanges where people can go and they buy Bitcoin very easily. But in Pakistan, it's pretty different. People who want to buy Bitcoin, they would have to go to peer-to-peer communities or peer-to-peer networks. For example, there are some exchanges, Binance, for example, they launched their P2P network in Pakistan. And a lot of people are using that. Before Binance, people were using social communities, like there were some groups on Telegram, on WhatsApp or Facebook, where the Bitcoiners would sell and buy Bitcoin to their friends and their other people. So it's kind of a different. And currently, there are no banking on-ramps and off-ramps in Pakistan. For example, I'm a freelancer in Pakistan, working out of Pakistan, and I get paid in Bitcoin. And I would definitely want some of that amount to be converted in local BKR currency for my expenses. So I would have to go to some peer-to-peer network, and then I would exchange it for local currency. It's still hard, but it's still doable. And in Pakistan, there are no currently Pakistani. When we talk about the Bitcoin mining industry in Pakistan, there are a lot of opportunities in Pakistan for Bitcoin mining. It has been happening actually in the northern part of Pakistan. We heard the news is about some guys gathered in the northern part of Pakistan, and they set up a facility, and they were running their own. They were generating their own power with hydropower turbines on small scale, and they were mining Bitcoin. But when the government saw that, and they busted them out, because Bitcoin was on a ban at that time, before 2017. So it's still hard to mine Bitcoin. Currently, we see only mining on small scale, like home miners running a couple of machines on their home or offices. So, but we heard that a lot of companies are interested in investing in and setting up mining facilities in Pakistan. But they're waiting for the mining regulations from the government to come in, so that they can invest in and start the Bitcoin mining in Pakistan. And when we talk about the mentality of people in Pakistan, they, like everyone, Pakistanis, they save money. They think gold is a reserve currency. They take it as a savings. For example, when Pakistanis get married, their parents would give them gold as a hedge against something bad times happen. So you still have some financial securities, some for the hard times. So they are taking it as a they think that gold is a store of value and a reserve currency. But now the young generation of Pakistan, they are thinking that Bitcoin is better than gold. They actually think that Bitcoin is gold 2.0. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, when those young peoples would, they would be like 5 to 10 years, they would have like own communities, and they would market it as a gold 2.0, and that would change the mentality of all the people. The problems that Bitcoin can solve for Pakistan, for example, Pakistan have global payment issues. Like earlier we talked about freelancers working from Pakistan, they have a lot of issues receiving payments. If they receive payments in their bank account from other countries, banks would ask them where the money came from. What are you doing? They would have to fill in some forms, and they would have to tell a lot of things to the banks, and that will go to the government. So there are a lot of restrictions in terms of doing that, because in Pakistan have a high scams rate. So that is why the banks and governments putting so much restrictions for freelancers and businesses working out of Pakistan. Bitcoin also fixes remittances issues in Pakistan. For example, there are a lot of family members living out of other countries, and they send monthly payments to their families back in home in Pakistan. They would use banking channels. So either it's like too costly, they would have to pay a lot of fees. For example, Western Union, they charge 10 to 15% from them. Or they use regular banking system, it will still be costly and it would take days. If Bitcoin is adopted as a base currency, using for remittances, people can send lightning payments quickly and instant settlements for anywhere from Earth to Pakistan. So that will be a game changer for remittances in Pakistan. And also, when we talk about the Bitcoin mining, Pakistan produces around 50% more energy than its demand. And a lot of that energy is lost because of bad transmission line. Pakistan doesn't have a good infrastructure for transmitting energy to households and to cities and to urban areas. So if government can invest in setting up mining farms at the production sites, they can save a lot of energy. They can mine Bitcoin and they can sell it for profits. That would save a lot of energy and a lot of wastage of money on the energy problems. Bitcoin can also help Pakistan to get out of foreign debt slavery. Pakistan currently has around 70 billion of foreign debt. If Bitcoin is adopted as a reserve currency by Pakistani government, it would, because we all know that Bitcoin numbers are going up. The price always goes up. It's a inflation hedge and it's a reserve currency. So if it's adopted by Pakistani government, it would save them from the foreign debt slavery. And ultimately, when the Bitcoin becomes a base currency for a country, for any developing country, it would definitely improve the quality of life in those developing countries. For example, when we talk about Pakistan has a lot of poor people. They don't have the quality of life that we see in other developed nations and developed countries. So Bitcoin ultimately improves this issue. A lot of poor people, they don't have access to food in the homes and the other services that we see on the developed nations. So it's very important for the currency to be fixed before the people's life can be fixed. And also, when we talk about the adoption in Bitcoin adoption in Pakistan, before 2007, in 2017, when the bull run happened, and there were a lot of other cryptocurrencies founders came in Pakistan from other countries, and they started their own shitcoins, and they marketed heavily in Pakistan. Because of Pakistani people, they didn't have much knowledge about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. They got into the scams, and these founders and these scammy projects, they scammed a lot of Pakistanis, and that led the State Bank of Pakistan to ban Bitcoin in 2017. They put a temporary ban on the Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies trading and buying and selling and every activities. But later in 2018, some community members in Pakistan, they pushed against the ban. And when the court inquired about why the State Bank of Pakistan put a ban on cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin trading in Pakistan, the State Bank of Pakistan said, we didn't put any ban. So after that, people now understand that Bitcoin is not legal or not illegal. It's kind of a gray area. So people, when anything is not like, it's a gray area, it's always a good opportunity to get in. So a lot of people are taking advantage of that. They are buying Bitcoin for their own safety from inflation hedge, investment purposes, and other purposes. And also, when we talk about Pakistan, the situation is pretty much similar in other developing nations. For example, Nigeria and other African countries, it's pretty similar to Pakistan. limited access to financial services, and high inflation rates. And corrupt governments, they harm the economic development of these regions. For example, in Pakistan, is similar. The government is relatively corrupt than the developed nations. So those corrupt government institutions, they would steal from common people, and that affects the quality of life for everyday people in the developing nations. So if Bitcoin is adopted as a currency, as a mechanism of payments, and as a mechanism of day trading activities, and access to financial services, it would solve that problem, because Bitcoin is unconfiscatable. It's decentralized monetary platform, so government can control it. The corrupt governments can harm it. Bitcoin could provide a significant benefit by overcoming the lack of social trust, and by increasing the access to financial services to the developing nations as well. And also, Bitcoin can become a medium to support the growth process in developing countries, increasing financial inclusion, providing a better traceability of funds, and to help people to escape poverty. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Back to you, Monas.
Farooq, and I think we can now open it up for questions. Dimitris?
Yeah, there was a question from the audience. How much is inflation in Pakistan?
It's a double-digit inflation in Pakistan. Like, for example, it's more than 10%. And when we specifically talk about, sometimes it will go higher than 15 to 20%. But for sometimes it will go lower. But when we talk about average inflation, it's around 15%. If we talk about the numbers, for example, if we measure it in terms of dollar value, in 2017, one US dollar was 105 PKR. And now in 2021, one US dollar is 170 PKR. So there's, in 3 years, it's a lot of inflation. So.
All right. I don't see any more questions on the YouTube chat, so perhaps I can ask you one. A friend from Karachi wanted to buy Bitcoin, and as you said, the international exchanges don't support payments from Pakistan, but she tried using a credit card because some support credit cards in general and debit cards, and that was declined. So this is a general trend. Are these payments declined by the Pakistani banks, or any insight in that?
Yeah, we heard those issues before as well. For example, a lot of people use Binance in Pakistan for peer-to-peer buying of Bitcoin. And when they use their local Pakistani credit cards to buy Bitcoin on Binance, Binance would ban it, because they knows that currently there is no banking regulations in Pakistan. So either banks would know that you are using your credit card to buy Bitcoin, the asset that they don't understand, and they restrict people to do that. So what you can do is you can use peer-to-peer platform. For example, you can go to Binance peer-to-peer network, and you would find a seller, and you would directly transfer the funds to the seller's account, and you will receive your Bitcoin, just like what we do on local Bitcoins. And there's also another exchange, peer-to-peer exchange called Taxful, that also works in Pakistan. So you can actually use your credit card on any of exchange to buy Bitcoin directly from the exchange. Because we talked about in the presentation that a lot of these big companies, the financial services companies, they don't operate in Pakistan. PayPal doesn't work here, and other MoonPay, the other Australian company, and other companies, those doesn't work in Pakistan. They don't provide financial services. They are not linked with the Pakistani banking network. So whenever you try to link your account or your credit card or your banking information to there, they would decline it, not the Pakistan banks.
Dimitris, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, so I don't see any more questions on YouTube chat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Farooq, thanks, Emil. That was indeed very informative, and we've all heard, stuff that we didn't know. And, thank you very much for, telling us about what's happening on your side of the world with Bitcoin. And thank you for all the effort that you've done in order to prepare this today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to share that. Thank you, Monas, for putting this together. Very, very happy.
Excellent. All right, so I think it's time now to move to our next presenter, and it's basically a legendary community called Paralenil Polis. So, how's Prague today? Hey, Mario.
Hey there, hey guys. Yeah, Prague is cold these days, and
I can imagine.
Thank you so much for. Yeah, right. I want to thank you so much for putting this together as well. Thank you for having me. And thank you for calling Paralenil Polis legendary. So what I will be talking about today is the Paralenil Polis, the ideas behind it, and what Paralenil Polis have been doing as community within Bitcoin for past 8 years. And so let me share my screen, I guess, if we can
Excellent.
start.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Can you see my screen? Perfect. I think I have it here. Can you see it? All good?
Yes, your full screen, all set.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Right. Cryptoanarchy and Paralenil Polis. So Paralenil Polis, as I mentioned, is a community within Prague, which has been holding not just Bitcoin Meetups, but many important events and happenings in Prague over past 8 years. This building is there since 2014, and it's 8 years of existence. And I would like to talk today about the ideas, about the history of this project, and maybe teach you a bit about cryptoanarchy and these ideas, which are, I think, strongly tied to Bitcoin, but doesn't cover just Bitcoin itself. Paralenil Polis and cryptoanarchy as well is much broader subject, but I believe it's in the roots of where Bitcoin is coming from. So as you may know, Czech Republic has many cool and important Bitcoin projects. Treasuries from here. General Bytes, the biggest provider of Bitcoin ATMs, or one of the biggest guys of Bitcoin ATMs, and somebody would call Paralenil Polis legendary. I heard what I like, that it's Mecca of Bitcoin. Many Bitcoiners are still coming back to this place. So this is how it physically looks. But first, let's talk about the background of this project, or the name. The name is in Czech, but I believe you can pretty much easily understand what does it say. It's Paralenil Polis. Yeah, you're Greek. I guess you know what polis means. Is it same in Greek, if I can ask you?
It means city. So yeah.
Yes, right. So yeah, in this context, it's some city, society, and that's what Paralenil Polis is. This idea comes from 40 years ago, from this movement, Charta 77 in Czechoslovakia. So it actually comes from dissidents within communism in Czechoslovakia, and these people created this initiative, Charta 77. The leaders of this initiative were dissidents. Václav Havel later became president. Led the country out of the communism, and another important person within the Charta movement is Václav Benda. And so these intellectuals put together many essays, many ideas about freedom, about changing the society, and so on and so on. It inspired many movements in the other countries, and Václav Benda wrote this fella. Václav Benda wrote within Charta as actually a reaction to what is happening within the movement. He wrote text Paralenil Polis, and largely simplified what is the idea of Paralenil Polis says, or what he was writing about was building parallel structures, because well, in this situation in country like communist Czechoslovakia, you cannot really change the society in the bottom-up way, because when you express yourself freely, well, you can't. Yeah, you also cannot do it the opposite way. You cannot change the politics because there is one party you cannot vote for. There is no democracy. So it comes with an idea that people should focus on building parallel structures, like a third way of achieving freedom, which would be creating this parallel society, parallel education, parallel economy. And these structures, which are not free within the state, make them free in a parallel polis, in society where you can be free. So this is what the background of the name is, and it's pretty local phenomena. It would sound like pretty local thing, but when you look through the history, I believe that these parallel societies, these parallel policies, have been happening all over the place in history, because it's kind of natural what is happening. And what we believe is that in 21st century, Bitcoin and the tools of cryptoanarchy are enabling creating this Paralenil Polis. So we have this beautiful place there, this cool logo of Institute of Cryptoanarchy. So why we call it an institute? What is the Cryptoanarchy? Cryptoanarchy is something which I believe is very close to the roots of Bitcoin. If you don't know about cypherpunks, about cryptoanarchy and crypto wars and these movements, I really suggest you to read on this topic, because about cypherpunks, this is not how cypherpunks looked, but how in 90s Wired showed them to the world. They mostly look like normal people, mostly with beards. So these people came from the 80s, from the crypto wars, where the government in the US basically wanted to ban cryptography as a weapon, which it's ridiculous. You might know the Electronic Frontier Foundation, founded by John Gilmore, man on the left, and Eric Hughes, man in the middle on the top right photo, is also within the Electronic EFF, but he's the founder of cypherpunks, and all of these people were in cypherpunk mailing list later. So cypherpunk is this community which is defending the cryptography tools, which emerged in the 80s. And what I always, or like what is the motto often mentioned, is that cypherpunks write code. So these people were actually creating the initiatives, but as well as the code, the tools itself, to protect yourself, using these weapons in defensive way, not for attacking. And one of these people is also Timothy C. May, who is founder of Cypherpunk mailing list, and he's author of Cryptoanarchy Manifesto. Eric Hughes, in the middle there, he's author of the Cypherpunk Manifesto. I suggest you to read both. And the Cryptoanarchy Manifesto, Timothy C. May is taking this idea further, that we can not just protect ourselves with tools of cryptography, but we can actively achieve freedom, because the state has all the power, or the governments and central strong players with some monopoles will always have the power over the physical world, but government or whoever cannot be controlling the digital world. The digital world, which is growing to infinity, which is becoming more and more important and bigger than the physical world itself. And here the government has no power because we have these tools, because we have the anonymity, because we have private communication. And these days we have the cryptocurrencies, we have Bitcoin as well. So, so I consider Bitcoin as a tool of cryptography, tool of cryptoanarchy. Cryptoanarchy might sound like some political system or something. It's not a political statement. It's this idea followed with by the tools, this is also this is the reason why Paralenil Polis is running this Bitcoin Cafe, which I will show later, and teaching about Bitcoin for so many years, because it's one of the most important tools that we have within the cryptoanarchy. Also to give you some local background about this community, I need to mention Stohoven, which is artistic group, and they've been doing some kind of hacking for more than 10 years now. They did many projects which are just activist artist projects, and in 2008 they made this fake nuclear bomb in a live stream in Czech television, and first got into the ideas of putting the activism together with the digital world, with the hacking. And this was project Občan K, which means basically ID card, where they morphed their faces and used basically put the faces together, so you can see that the two of them always look similarly. They then they asked for ID with the other's person name. So basically tested the system, the identification within the system, and there's a whole movie about it. Project they are most famous for are these red pants of the castle. So you can see they took down the standard of president, the flag of president in Prague castle of Czech Republic. They put there the red trousers, and then the standard, the flag of president became, I call it like Bitcoin NFTs actually. So you see they cut the flag into 1,152 pieces and put them on the paper like this. You see description of the art. The name of the project was decentralization of power. The idea wasn't that like attack on the president, but to show that he's the central entity, and we ask for decentralization of power. And so what you have here, they gave it away to random people, and you have their private key and public key of a Bitcoin address where there is some part of the money which the flag cost. So you could withdraw some Bitcoin from there, and you have the original part of flag from Prague Castle. So they've been experimenting with Bitcoin and these technologies. This year they made this beautiful field. And Paralenil Polis is also inspired by community from Slovakia, Progress Bar, Hackerspace in Bratislava. So I'm from Slovakia myself. I'm kind of representing here Czechoslovakia, and I will be talking about Paralenil Polis other in the world as well. But this Paralenil Polis in Prague was basically founded by these artists from Stohoven and members, people from Progress Bar, Bratislava. And the idea originally was something like, let's put together a hackerspace in Prague, and they found this building and realized that Paralenil Polis can take more concepts together and take the hackerspace idea to the next level. So somebody would say that Paralenil Polis is a hackerspace. I agree, but there are different ways how it's expressed within the building itself. So first, maybe if I didn't talk about the logo, the triangle in the logo of Paralenil Polis means art, technology, and science. So concepts which Paralenil Polis is experimenting with, and I would call it more like pathfinding than like trying to just show people the way, the experiments and teaching about various technologies in various fields, which create new communities, which create projects within various parts of the parallel society. So this is how I see Paralenil Polis. And so what we do here physically is the Bitcoin Cafe, which is I'm not sure if only place in the world. I guess these days not, but for a long time, it was the place which accepts only Bitcoin. And till today, it stands that for I guess 8 years now, Paralenil Polis has been accepting only Bitcoin. Because we are the parallel structure, we don't want to have anything with the state money. We, of course, don't receive any grants. The Paralenil Polis is a non-profit. It's a community-run non-profit. Everything comes from donations, and it's completely state-free. So the Bitcoin Cafe, yeah, here are some photos. Hodl there. So the Bitcoin Cafe is the place where you could always only pay with Bitcoin. So this is the entrance to Polis, the way, the place where you can learn how to use Bitcoin on the simplest case of buying the coffee. And well, if you see a nice place with a good coffee, I mean, okay, if just I need to get a card or install an app, I will go and get Bitcoin. So this way, I believe we teach thousands of people to directly on the place to use Bitcoin. And yeah, they wrote about us, of course, or about Paralenil Polis. So this is here downstairs, the entrance to Paralenil Polis. Then there is a first floor, which is Paper Hub. It's a co-working. It's a co-working which, of course, you can pay it only in Bitcoin. And in this specific building, I mean, it attracts certain people. Yeah, there is network of individuals which are somehow free-minded, who work with this, similar concepts in mind. And therefore, if you are in Prague and you want to co-work with cool people and enjoy the Bitcoin space, just come to Paper Hub, to Paralenil Polis. And why is it called Paper Hub and not whatever, Bitcoin Hub? So when the Paralenil Polis started, they didn't really have money for all the furniture and stuff. And the cheapest way and the really designy way how to do it was with the paper. As you can see, all this cardboard furniture there, which now is mostly wooden, but this is why it's Paper Hub, and it's really nice. And on the second floor, there is the Institute of Cryptoanarchy itself. So the Institute is this lovely place for meetups, for events, for talks, for conferences. This is where the community really meets and stuff happens. So Institute has this physical form, but as well as digitally, I would consider it a bit of a think tank. Which you can follow to get the insight to these days the world of cryptoanarchy. And in the basement of Paralenil Polis, you can find studio. It's called Media Hub. It's office where you can work, and we have a professional YouTube studio there, or like a professional video studio where we do our YouTube content, as well as you can go there and create some of your own if you would need some professional cameras, microphones, and stuff. And next to it, in basement of Paralenil Polis, is Bordel. Bordel is a hackerspace. It's the hackerspace, which I call hackerspace because it's the more classical way of the hackerspace approach. The hackerspaces around the world are mostly these tinkering places where a community of technology-minded people meet and they solder, they program together, they hack shit. So we are hacking here in hackerspace Bordel. We have here various tools. We run a bunch of Bitcoin nodes, and and for example, Bleskomat Bitcoin ATM for Lightning, which guys from within Paralenil Polis community created on a Learning by Doing Meetup, which were happening there. You can see on the photo like wooden ATM models, and here my friend is holding in his hand like a Let's Stripe, which is doing chaos, randomized function. Bordel means, well, in some cultures it might mean warehouse, but in Czech or in Slovak it also means like a mess, just a mess, just a root word for something messy. And that's what we do there. We do the chaos, the entropy, which you indeed need to have all the Bitcoin secure, right? So yeah, we have various projects there and do the technology, some 3D printers and also some lights for a good party in the evenings. It's in the basement, so people are mostly really technical. They don't care that there are no windows and so on. And if you are around, you can visit us and hack with us if you would need this kind of space, which is like sharing tools and ideas with more of a Bitcoin hackers than just random people from coworkers. The Bordel is place for you. And this is Paralenil Polis in Prague. But the idea of Paralenil Polis is much stronger, I would say, than the building itself, and it spreads around the world. So what is happening around the world? And so what was the most successful project apart from Prague was, I think, Paralenil Polis Bratislava. So in Bratislava in 2017, Paralenil Polis was founded, a Slovak version of the one in Prague, and it was a lovely place. Yeah, this was a Bitcoin cafe with ATM where you get your Bitcoins. In the back there was like a co-working, which in the evening we turned into a presentation space, and upstairs it was like chill zone for some meetings and so on. So the place was really nice, and it was running for maybe 1.5 years, but sadly the COVID killed it. So during the COVID, it got completely shut down, but the community is still there, and there might be some events happening over the next few months or next year. So keep an eye on it as well. Yeah, I have to mention this is cool graffiti in Bratislava. The Bitcoin community in Slovakia is strong as well, and two Slovak filmmakers created this indie documentary about Czech and Slovak Bitcoin community. And you can watch it. It's in Slovak Czech. You can check it with English subtitles at libertasfilm.sk. Yeah, that's great insight into what is happening in whole Czechoslovakia. And then there is Paralenil Polis in Vienna. This is a really nice community which emerged there. You might know Exile Surfer or Sovereign, one of these projects, and they made this lovely place there. However, it's also during the COVID wasn't really active. I'm not sure what is the state right now, but make sure to get in touch with Exile Surfer, Michael, for example, and hopefully we'll be able to visit them in the future as well. So then about Paralenil Polis in the world, I haven't mentioned that Paralenil Polis Barcelona almost happened. The Catalan Paralenil Polis Paralela. I think there was Amir Taki and community around him who wanted to start a place there. It all changed the concept, I think during the COVID or before the COVID. So it's also not active anymore. But there are people who know and love this concept from all around the world. And if you are watching this in the Global Bitcoin Meetup, I believe you are one of them as well. What you can do is actually start your own Paralenil Polis. It's an open source concept. We have some docs on GitHub. Get in touch with me if you want to know more about having your own Paralenil Polis, but most importantly, this place needs a very strong community. It needs somebody who can be focused on it, and it's not easy to run the building all the time like this. So what we created in Prague is actually Paralenil Polis on wheels. What you see here on the photo is a decent truck. It's it's a truck which one of the guys from Stoven, or the founders of Paralenil Polis, bought like 10 years ago, and then he was like, okay, let's make it Paralenil Polis. So this is Paralenil Polis on wheels, how I call it, because it includes all the important stuff which you need to onboard people and do the Paralenil Polis magic. We take cafe machine and basically like cafe on wheels. So we go to festivals, we go to events, conferences around Czech Republic and Europe, to meet the local community there, to make great coffee, which you only can pay with Bitcoin. So we have also some Bitcoin ATMs in the truck, which help you to get your first Bitcoin and get coffee for it. Then we also have like speakers and set for making presentations. So we also do talks at the place and discussions and so on. So this track this way visited, for example, Lightning Conference in Berlin. It was a great event. And when we went there, of course, we had to get gas for Bitcoin. This is a gas station in Prague, which accepts Bitcoin. Oh, look how cheap was gas at the time. Then we visited many other festivals mostly in Czech Republic. And this summer we went on a huge trip to Serbia and Romania. So this is in Serbia. As you can see, the guy holding the cables for starting because the batteries were dead. So it was pretty adventurous trip with this 30-something years old car. Then we are here in Romania trying to fix it. And what we do here is this really onboarding in the front lines, I call it. So this is Romania. You can see this cows on the left with this track on the right. And there are multiple things amazing about this. This was a village of hidden in the hills, basically, almost no internet at all, and it was a hell because thousands of people came to a festival there, and we wanted to teach them how to use Bitcoin Lightning. But of course, everything in the cafe runs on Lightning. It's not possible to do it other way. And now when they wanted to install the wallet, well, it wasn't really possible with the internet there. So it really hurt. It was hurting. We started to use LNURL, and then I created the badges, which works with Lightning with LNURL, and people are offline. So what we do here is also with these frontlines onboarding events, we also somehow research or test the Bitcoin fields and come up with some ideas how to make the onboarding better, and most importantly in the search of easy way how to use Bitcoin without KYC. Exactly what was said about Pakistan before. How can somebody easily buy Bitcoin without KYC, anonymously, and well, avoid all the government pressure which might happen in any country. So we are teaching about this for many years in Polis, and I see that it's might be different in the Eastern countries. I was very glad to hear about Pakistan, because like in Czechia, I would say it's similar to most of the West, where people have banks and it's easy double quotes, for them to go to some exchange, put there all your private info and get Bitcoin, and of course it comes with consequences which they might not realize. So we are trying to make this onboarding which is anonymous, easy. We were using Bleskomat, the offline Lightning ATM, and now I believe we can be using with a normal, with the general bytes ATMs, offline payment cards. So we started this like 4 or 5 years ago in Paralenil. When somebody comes from the street and he asks or he wants a coffee, he needs to use Bitcoin. And for many people, it's they won't install an app. So we started to use NFC cards and QR cards, paper cards with QR codes with Bitcoin public and private key. It works, but it's not secure, it's not private, and it's on chain. Then we started to use Litecoin because it's this basically same technology as Bitcoin, so it's not hard to switch. And it was like this introduction, like this demo of Bitcoin when you want a cafe, but it still takes a lot of time, and you are giving people, Litecoin, not Bitcoin. So then we went to Lightning, and for the past 2 years, we've been also fighting with this early, I would still call it early stages of Lightning onboarding. And yeah, this is how we play and test with technologies. And what I like about this photo, you can notice a man with a yellow bag there. It's a bag with a logo of HCPP 2017, the conference which Paralenil organized. So he knew us, and he went. He was there in Romania just just randomly there, and he still had his wallet. So right. So if this interest doesn't come to you, you can visit us. We are in Prague. It's Prague 7, Jelinska 43. You can easily find it in OpenStreetMap, in Google Maps, and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere. So if you are thinking about visiting Prague and Paralenil, check flyingcircuit.com. This is the hackathon which we are organizing in Paralenil with Bordel and Pioneers, the concepts within Paralenil. And it's a non-conformist hackathon with pretty open tracks. So if you have anything you would like to focus on, work on during a few days, and with a chance that you win some money and some prizes, come to visit us at November 26th. It's a weekend in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in 3 weeks, right? Yeah, good. Yeah, come to visit us, folks. Flying Circuit, and then also Paralenil is organizing many other events. The most important to mention is HCPP. Here is the link, hcpp.cz. It's Hackers Congress Paralenil. It's a conference which is focused on digital freedom, cryptoanarchy, art, and technologies. Not Bitcoin conference per se, but many important Bitcoiners were there, will be there, and it's maybe more various in the topics. Alekos here was one of the speakers this year and a year before as well. For example, and at a YouTube of Paralenil, we produce content which is mostly in Czech. It's local. If somebody from Czechia speaking doesn't follow us there, check it. There are many cool video series on various technology, art, science topics. But you can also find their recordings from talks from HCPP from past many years. So check in on HCPP.cz and also on the YouTube. And follow us on Twitter, Paralenil, and all the other concepts and existing Paralenil policies. You can find it at voidivon.sk. It will redirect you to Paralenil, Czechia, Bratislava, and so on. And you can donate to Paralenil. As I mentioned, it's a non-profit run by community. So please support us if you can. Come physically, buy a t-shirt or something, but also you can send us a few sats at Lightning address, which is donate@pay.paralenil.cz. If you have this LNURL Lightning address compatible wallet, you can send money there, or just scan this LNURL pay, which you see on the screen. Yeah, right. So this was less technical presentation. I wanted to show you what is actually happening on the front lines and what we've been doing in in Prague. Yeah. So I think that's it. I'm not sure if there is still time or.
Yes. I just want to say on my end, Mario, that we think that we do stuff for our communities. I can say that as a leader of my community, and then you come along and you show us that you've got trucks with your logo and all that, and cafes, and you're really taking it to a different level. And I'm sure, being to some extent, like in your side of the fence, I know that all that comes with a lot of effort, and a lot of people need to dedicate their free time for all those stuff to be built. So it's very impressive. So hats off to what I'm concerned.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad that somebody understands it's a lot of effort, a lot of work to keep this, not just like extend it, make these projects and onboard people, but just keep it running. Yeah, especially during COVID. And so, I'm not sure if there are any questions.
Yes, sure,
yeah,
Dimitris.
So let me just quickly say that I've been to Hackers Congress 3 times and to Bratislava once, so nice. I'm eager to visit you guys again. So there are some questions on the YouTube tab. So one of them is how to buy your amazing Institute of Cryptoanarchy merchandise.
I love it. I'm really glad that you like it. Yeah, the brand of Institute of Cryptoanarchy is cool. It's spread around the world. So you can find an e-shop on paralenil.cz, or you can visit us physically and buy a t-shirt in a cafe. It's on paralenil.cz/shop. I'm not sure how it is with the international shipping, depending on where you're from. Maybe just hit the contact button there, and if you if you say I'm from this part of the world, I know maybe Australia or somebody who is listening here, we can deal with it, of course. So check the eShop and visit us if you can. paralenil.cz/shop. Yeah.
And there's a question from Andreas in Vienna asking, do you participate in real-world activist actions that we facilitate in Vienna and the broader Central and Eastern Europe?
Is it something specific? Which physical actions? I'm not sure if it's some.
I assumed Andreas knew what he's talking about. I assumed that you were aware. And
I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether he meant something specific or in CE activists still in Vienna. Activist actions. I'm not sure if he. Not sure if he meant some specific activist actions, because this is what I consider activists actions in what we do. The onboarding, and you see it's the Havel is the activist artist group, and all of this is happening in the real world. Yeah, the meetups and stuff that we do there physically, it's the real world, so not just online.
And the last question was from someone who asked about how the name Paralenil Polis came about, but I think you answered that earlier on.
Yeah. So I answered that in the first part. The Parallel Polis, and in Czech, Paralenil Polis was the name of the essay by artist Václav Benda, dissident during the communism, who wrote this essay and came up with the idea. I can post the link somewhere, maybe. You can find it on Wikipedia as well. The Charter 77 about the dissidents, where you can find Václav Benda, Paralenil Polis, has its own article. So it comes from this concept.
And I think that's all.
Mario, there was a request about people, wanting to save the link for your eShop. So if you can just post it on Zoom, and then, right. George or someone else will just, throw it on the YouTube chat. And I think it's now time. First of all, Mario, thanks, Emil. That was indeed, amazing and very impressive. And it's now time
Thank you so much
for us to switch to our friends in Munich. Guten Tag. How are you guys? Michael, Stepan, how are you?
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. So, if Michael wants to say a few words, or we can just, just take it over with Stepan and whatever you guys like.
Yeah, I guess we're short on schedule, I guess. So cut it short, switch over to Stepan. Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Stepan, the stage is yours.
Okay, great. So yeah, for those who don't know me, I work on Specter wallet and Specter DIY hardware wallet as well. And most of the time I give talks about hardware wallets. And yeah, guess what? Today as well. So I hope that you can see my screen now. And
yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great.
Excellent.
Wonderful. So I want to talk about not just hardware wallets, but also focus a little bit more on the DIY hardware wallets that became a thing only like a year ago or so. And this is like a really interesting thing when actually anyone can just take a bunch of hardware, off-the-shelf hardware, and build their own hardware wallet. But unfortunately, with certain benefits, you also have some security trade-offs, and this is what I want to talk about. So yeah, this just give me a second, I will move away the Zoom stuff. Yep, these are the wallets on the left that you already know, right? So Trezor, Ledger, Cold Card, Keystone, so nice consumer hardware wallets that you can buy off the shelf. And they have like a great teams working on the cryptography professionally and taking care of all the complicated stuff. So everything looks fine. So why to bother? Why to build something from some unknown sources, like just inspired by the community, by some enthusiasts? So there are a few benefits actually of the DIY hardware wallets compared to normal ones. So first, probably you saw that there was a problem recently with Ledger and phishing when the database of all the customers of Ledger actually leaked. And some people started sending fake Ledger wallets to people. And it was like really poorly implemented supply chain attack, not even supply chain attack, but kind of hardware phishing attack. And one could implement it much better. But yeah, they basically replaced the real ledger with the ledger that contains inside a USB stick. And the instruction was saying that please run this command and enter your recovery phrase on your computer. So like really poorly implemented, and anyone who knows how hardware wallet works should never do this. But I mean, the fact is that attackers, hackers know your addresses because you are buying Bitcoin focused products. So DHL delivery also knows that this box that has like Trezor or Cold Card label in it, it is probably a Bitcoin hardware wallet, right? So there are plenty of places where when you are buying Bitcoin related product, you are reducing your privacy, your OPSEC, your personal security, because you are exposing to the whole world that you own Bitcoin. And if you are using hardware wallets, especially multiple of them, then probably you're exposing that you own a few Bitcoins or, I don't know, some valuable amount, right? So this is the first thing, because on the DIY hardware wallets, what you use something different, something like normal developer board or an old phone that you can just turn into air-gap mode and install a mobile wallet, or a laptop with Bitcoin Core. Seed Signer, for example, is using Raspberry Pi. So like no one would guess that some random Raspberry Pi that is going somewhere will be holding Bitcoins, right? So there are too many Raspberry Pis flying around the world. So supply chain attack on all Raspberry Pis is not practical. Then there is another point that if you are using like this DIY approach, then you probably can just tweak the logic if you want to. So this is not for like normal people, not developer, sorry, not developers. But if you are as a developer, then you can just look through the code, change it, upload new code, and so on. So you don't have like this lock of the manufacturer. And it is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Because yeah, so the companies that are doing the hardware wallets, they normally also publish the code of the Bitcoin functionality such that you can check it, you can potentially change it, but then you can't really upload it to the device. So you only can inspect the code, but you don't have an ability to change the code. And in the DIY approach, it's usually other way around. If you know how to look through the code, how to program, if you know that you want a certain feature, then you can just implement it for yourself. Or even better, you can implement it and contribute to the project. And then sometimes people are doing really crazy things, especially on the seed signers community, but as well as on others. Yeah, you can actually see some things that I don't think any for-profit hardware wallet will ever do. So for example, like take a selfie and convert it into the recovery phrase, or this QR code backup of the seed signer, where you can look at the QR code with your recovery phrase and just tap it on the template. So there is a lot of space for innovations in this field. Yeah, so that's are mostly the benefits. But now I want to talk a bit about the problems of DIY hardware wallets, because, well, there are a few. So the first one, yeah, the gallery. A few pictures of different hardware wallets if you don't know of some of them. So Crux is a pretty new and I would say quite young project that is using M5 Stick V. It is a developer board from China that is using a RISC-V microcontroller that has a camera, has a tiny screen, and the buttons. So and it is fully air-gapped. So you can turn it on. You can use QR codes to communicate with the host, and you can sign stuff. So I think that they first saw this project like half a year ago, so it's not like very mature, but it is definitely like interesting to look at. Then the seed signer, it is like already more popular and like very well-known project. So it is based on Raspberry Pi, as I said, and they have a few nice developers that are doing different interesting things and playing with the UX and stuff. Also Specter DIY, the wallet that I'm working on. And yeah, I would also consider like an air-gapped laptop that is using Bitcoin Core also as a DIY hardware wallet, because a laptop is just a consumer off-the-shelf electronics, and Bitcoin Core is, well, it is a Bitcoin wallet. So it can work without internet as well. So you can just use it only for signing. That's no problem with that. Yeah, so let's, sorry. Let's talk a bit about the process, how the hardware wallet, like a normal hardware wallet, is manufactured, and then compare it to the process of the building it yourself. So the thing is that in normal companies, what you do, you first buy the components like the chips and capacitors and make the board and so on. Then it is transferred to the factory that is building actually the consumer hardware wallet. And then the special person that has like access rights and all the controls and the security and so on is initializing your device to the initial state. So it is basically locking the device to the firmware that is produced by this vendor. So for example, let's say Trezor goes to the table of this specific person, and the person is uploading the board loader, the bootloader to the device. And after that, the only firmware that this device will accept is the firmware that was signed by Trezor. The same happens with Ledger, Cold Cards, Keystone, any hardware wallet device. So, and then it goes to the delivery, and then I would say that delivery is the weakest problem, weakest point, because yeah, everyone knows that this is a Bitcoin-related product that is going to your address. So you have all kind of problems with supply chain attacks, maybe just robbery or something, or swapping the device or something like that. So this is like the normal process, and I would say that the last thing is the most problematic. It could be also problems like internally, such that the guy who is uploading the firmware decided that he wants to do something bad and upload a different firmware and so on. But normally, like, you kind of trust the company that they are capable of maintaining the security process. So what happens in the DIY is completely different. Here, you're just buying a bunch of stuff from Mouser, DigiKey, whatever, Amazon, and it comes to your home. And then you are this person who is responsible for uploading the firmware. And this is the problem, because your device is still very stupid at this moment, and it can accept anything. And this means that if your computer at the moment when you're uploading the firmware is compromised, then you're fucked. So you can potentially upload the firmware that was tampered with by your computer. So I think this is like the most critical part that everyone should keep in mind, that the moment when you are assembling and initially flashing the device is like the mostly critical. So you should probably take extra attention to the process and probably load into some operation system like Tails or whatever, or clean operation system or something like that, such that you can make sure that at least at first the firmware that is going to the device is correct. Then another problem is already about the updating, but this is like a second one. So here, basically, we are moving the responsibility from the company, and instead of trusting the company that they can secure the whole supply chain, we are moving this to ourselves. And here we are responsible for the firmware that is going to the device. Yep, so this is the first trade-off. And then there are a few other. So the second one is how you update the firmware. So again, as I said in the first step, for the normal consumer hardware wallet, they only will accept updates of the firmware that are coming from the company. So Trezor's firmware updates, ledgers, and so on. So you cannot really change the firmware and upload it to the hardware wallet. With the DIY hardware wallet, it is also possible. But the question is it implemented or not? For example, in Specter DIY, after initial firmware upload, you have the bootloader that checks the updates against certain keys. So by default, it is my key and our company key. But in principle, you can customize it such that you also enforce the key from yourself, such that any firmware update you also check yourself, add a signature signed by your key, and then update the device. As far as I remember, Seed Signer and Crux don't have this capabilities. This means that every time when you update, you somehow need to, again, trust the device that is doing this update. Because if the hardware wallet cannot check the updated firmware, then your laptop has to do that. And well, normally it is done with the PGP keys and stuff, but again, it goes back to the question of the security of your laptop that you are using to upload the firmware. With the Bitcoin Core, air-gapped Bitcoin Core, I think it's a little bit better because there you have an air-gapped computer already, and you can preload there the PGP keys of Bitcoin maintainers, and you can check that the update of Bitcoin Core is actually genuine and signed by the community. So this is the first thing, and I think that in principle, after maybe half a year or so, all DIY hardware wallets will implement some kind of verification of the update mechanism, because I think this is like the really critical part if you want to keep your system both secure and up to date. Then another one that is problem currently because of the DIY that is not mature enough is deterministic builds. So all hardware wallets, as far as I remember, Trezor, Ledger, Coldcard, not sure about Keystone, they are using deterministic builds. This means that you can get the firmware update file from the company, and you can build it yourself using the source code on their GitHub repository, and then you can see if it is the same or not. So this this way you make sure that the source code that everybody sees in the internet is actually the code that is going to your hardware wallet. And I think it is very important, because otherwise you are just blindly flashing something signed by the company. And I mean, you kind of trust the company, but in the ideal world, you want to like trust but verify, right? Well, don't trust, verify, right? But in this case, you kind of sometimes have to trust someone. Okay, and then the third thing is the code review. And here I think also DIY hardware wallets are losing a few points, because normally DIY hardware wallets, they are reviewed by like the community, but mostly by people that are just excited, playing around with stuff and like doing funny things, and maybe sometimes a little bit reckless things. And for the serious for-profit organizations, they actually like hire security professionals. And I think these security researchers will get interested into DIY hardware wallets as soon as they become more and more popular. So I hope that this will be fixed, like improved in the future. Yeah, so this is just the overview of these three important features for updating. So as you see, all normal hardware wallets support secure boot and this secure update. Then code review is pretty much decent for all of them. So in some cases like Ledger and Keystone, you don't really see the source code of the secure elements, but at least the rest of the code you see. So it's, I would say, halfway there. And then deterministic build is currently available for Trezor and Coldcard. For DIY, you see it is a little bit empty on all the points, and I really hope that we will improve it in the future, and so it will work better and be more like compatible with the top standards of the industry and so like what you really expect from the security project. And then finally, another important thing is the development process. So headcount, how many people are working on the project? How many people are actually looking and improving the project, code reviewing the project? And yeah, here are the rough numbers. Bitcoin Core is probably the top here. So in that sense, in sense of reviews, I think air-gapped Bitcoin Core on the cheapish laptop totally makes sense, especially if you use some kind of additional security features of the operation system to boot into the system. Then on all DIY hardware wallets that are normally like a few guys, like 2, 3, 1 sometimes, and so on. And then in all hardware wallets, you normally have like a team of 20, 50 people, but there is a big but. They sometimes support altcoins. And you see there is a correlation. More altcoins they support, more people they have to have. And I'm not sure that it is such a good thing, because this means that they probably have still like the same 2, 3 guys working on the Bitcoin logic and others just supporting altcoins. So you see that in that sense, Coldcard have just a pretty small team, but as they're only Bitcoin focused, maybe it's not that bad now. So yeah, this is like the rough overview of what DIY is currently about and what are the pros and cons. And to summarize what we have in pros and cons, consumer hardware wallets, you get the device that is already secure if you are lucky and you don't get supply chain, but this is like probability is pretty low, right? So you already can be sure that the firmware that is going to your hardware wallet will be signed by the company, made by the company, reviewed by the company, and it is all done like in a professional way, so like a normal consumer secure device. So nice, convenient, but not quite yours. It's locked to the manufacturer. With DIY, you have a complete freedom. You don't need to tell anyone that you own Bitcoins. You can actually just use off-the-shelf components. You can configure it as you want. You can extend it if you want. And you can experiment if you're a developer and contribute. And it is like more fun, I would say, as well. And fun doesn't mean that it cannot be secure. So what I would suggest, like normally for people, yeah, just use both. I mean, if you are holding a reasonable amount, then and you want to get benefits of both, probably it's a good idea to have a multi-sig, something like 2 or 3, and use something like one consumer hardware wallet with a secure element, one DIY hardware wallet that you like for like usability and things, and maybe one more. Why not an air-gapped Bitcoin core, or just stamp it on the, this metal plates and just store it somewhere because it's 2 or 3 after all. So this is my recommendation. It doesn't mean that you have to do this, but that's pretty much what I'm using. And this summarizes my talk. So I'm happy to answer the questions.
Excellent. That was indeed amazing, Stepan. Thank you very, very much for that. Before we move to questions from YouTube chat and maybe any other questions from the panel, I'd like you to comment on secure elements regarding hardware wallets. So as far as I know, and do please correct me if I'm wrong, yes, firmwares for wallets are open sourced, but I feel there's a reluctancy to open source secure element code. So why is that?
I would say that at the moment there are no open source secure elements, really.
Exactly.
And the main reason is that when people are manufacturing secure elements that have all these bell and whistles like voltage, time monitoring, and they're going through all the certifications, they have 3 extra points if they are closed source. So it's just a certification thing that if the code is not available for public, then yeah, you get an extra score. So you can have not EAL 5, but EAL 5+, and it is like better in a sense. So this is the first reason. And the second one is that, well, still security by obscurity is like adding some security. So it's bad because you cannot review the code, you cannot like report the vulnerabilities, but it's also helps to avoid attackers by like attackers cannot just study the code. They have first to get access to the code somehow. Yeah, normally it is very difficult. So I know that it is going to change. So Trezor is working on open source secure element. This is really, really great. Tropic Square, I think it's called, the company, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think that as soon as I get my hands on it, I will definitely use it. Then the second interesting project is Maxim Integrated, the American company, are issuing, like manufacturing the secure elements that are not certified. So they just dropped certification, but you don't need an NDA to program on it. So you can actually write a code and open source it without any problems. So this is another interesting thing. And then the third one is Precursor by Bunny. This is like a secure communication device based on FPGA. They raised some money with the Kickstarter, I think, or crowdfunding, and they're building the pretty damn secure system and open and extendable. But it's going to be expensive because FPGAs are pretty expensive. But on the other hand, they remove as much proprietary stuff as they can. Yeah. So that is also very interesting. So I think it will change in some.
And without meaning to monopolize the discussion, but I always wanted to ask you this since you started. Let's just say that you've got a hardware wallet that accepts many altcoins, okay? And a hardware wallet that accepts much less. Would you somehow, come to the conclusion or believe that the more altcoins supported by hardware wallet, the more the security breaches is more possible?
It depends. So I know that most of the companies, like I think Keystone and Bitbox, are allowing you to have a Bitcoin-only firmware where all the altcoin code is just removed completely from firmware. Maybe Trezor as well. I bet that Trezor should probably has something like that. And on Ledger, you actually have like different apps for different altcoins. So generally, I would say it doesn't have to reduce your security if you support like 1,000 altcoins. But I would be very careful when you are using the same seed, the same recovery phrase for multiple altcoins. I think that there was an issue on Ledger where altcoin application was able to access and sign transactions using Bitcoin keys. So they didn't respect the BIP32 derivation path. And that has a poorly designed program, then you can compromise your Bitcoins. But as soon as you only use Bitcoin stuff, I think that you are safe. So generally, if you are an altcoin person, then I would recommend have two different hardware wallets, one for altcoins and one for Bitcoin. Yeah, or a few for Bitcoin. Yeah, but
Understood.
generally, I think that actually having altcoins doesn't have to reduce the security, and it actually allows people, the architects of the system, start thinking in this isolation, like how to isolate the apps, how to restrict the permissions. So from the thinking perspective, developer's perspective, it is very useful to think like in modular way, even though I personally don't want to support any altcoins, but I see the benefits in it as well. Yeah.
Understood. Excellent. Thanks, Emil, Stepan. That was all very intuitive and informative. Dimitris, over to you if there's any questions or whatever.
Yeah, there's a question on Google, on YouTube chat. They're asking, is a dump microcontroller better than Raspberry Pi as a do-it-yourself hardware wallet?
So it is better in sense of the attack surface. The thing is that Raspberry Pi has the full Linux system, and Linux system, it's gigabytes of source code, and actually the image of the operation system is also gigabytes. And this means that you can it is not possible to review everything. I mean, Linux developers are great. They are working really hard, but sometimes when you're writing a media decoder, you don't think about the security and how it can open a hole to your system. So I would say that less code is running on the device is better. But on the other hand, Linux is also used pretty often in the security systems. For example, all these commercial hardware security modules, they are using very stripped down, removed all the drivers that are not necessary, but still a Linux system. So if you are really careful with choosing and tweaking the distribution, then you can be fine. But personally, I prefer bare metal, so just using a dumb microcontroller and isolate as much as I can there. But it doesn't mean that my approach is much more secure than the Linux approach. So Linux is also fine. Yeah, for example, sorry, just remembered, Keystone is using Android under the hood, and only the secure element part is on the bare metal, and the rest is like Android system. And as soon as it doesn't have, like it is air gapped and you control the communication channel, then it's totally fine. Well, if it is connected over USB, it is more complicated because the protocol is like really complex. But yeah, in principle, you can use Linux as well.
So these are all the questions from the chat. I want to add a quick operational question. So do you recommend people generate their own randomness?
I recommend people to mix the randomness that they generate themselves with the randomness coming from true random number generators. So all the hardware wallets have a built-in true random number generator that is certified, meaning we don't know what is running inside and we have no idea if it is good or not, but it has a stamp that it is approved by American government or whatever government. Yeah, so it is giving you some randomness, but if you're not sure if it is good or not, then what you can do, you can, well, this is actually what I implemented in Specter DIY as well. You can just take 11 coins and flip them, and then see like if you have heads or tails, and then sort them together. So you basically, every bit of your true randomness coming from the hardware source, you either flip the bit or don't flip the bit. So you basically XOR this. And then at the end, you will have an entropy that is much better than any of these sources of entropy. And it is also verifiable because, yeah, you just sort the things, so there is no way the device can trick you. So this is like my favorite approach. In principle, what you can do, you can just take a bunch of different sources of entropy from, I don't know, temperature measurements, like take last digits or like acoustic noise, or similar to what Raspberry Designer is doing, take a selfie. When you're taking the selfie, you have a lot of randomness from the camera because the sensors are very noisy and the image, like, there is no way you will be able to produce exactly the same image, right? So this is a very good source of entropy, and then you just hash it and you get your recovery phrase. Yep. So I would say mix them.
All right, thank you very much.
Excellent. Stepan, Bitcoin Munich, thanks again very much for this presentation. We all have learned something new today, so thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay.
Excellent. Sure. Okay, so buonasera to our friends in Italy. Alekos, hey, how are you? Oh, we're having a bit of trouble with the internet there. Yeah, we can't hear you, unfortunately. Yeah. We can't hear any sound, unfortunately, Alekos. No, at least I can't. Okay, yeah, so basically we can give Alekos a second. So, you know, until he's able to join again. Dimitris, do you want us to you know, like, make time and, you know, basically dedicate the time to some questions for Farooq that we missed earlier on, or how would you like us to proceed? Or we can just, you know, continue with Greece's presentation and, you know, follow up with Alekos later on.
Well, if Farooq is still around, there was a question on what's the size of the Bitcoin population and crypto population in Pakistan?
Yeah, I'm here. So the Bitcoin, is it specific to the community or the total cryptocurrency user base in Pakistan?
Well, I guess you can answer on both.
Yeah, we have, like, in Bitcoin, for Bitcoin Pakistan, we currently have around on different channels. We have, if we calculate them together, we will have 8,000 to 10,000 people on different channels on our private social media group on Facebook groups and WhatsApp and Telegram. But if we talk about the, in general, adoption, cryptocurrency adoption in Pakistan, I would say it's pretty low. It's like, not very much, like it's less than 1% of the young population of Pakistan. But over the past 3 years, for example, from 2017's bull run up till now, the adoption of cryptocurrency in general in Pakistan has grown, I would say 10x. Because, you know, in 2017, when we were speaking with people in Pakistan, like most of the people didn't have any idea what Bitcoin was, but what Bitcoin is and what cryptocurrencies are. After 2017, most get the idea what Bitcoin is, but they never got in. But now we see that those people, a lot of for example, in universities, college students, and they like more than 50% of them holding some amount of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. And this adoption growth came from the peer-to-peer network exchanges in Pakistan. The Binance exchange and the Paxful exchange, these peer-to-peer exchanges are marketing heavily in the country. Like a few months back, Binance, we were speaking with the Binance officials, and they were hiring in Pakistan for their marketing team, and they don't currently have any official hires in Pakistan, employees. So they are hiring, and they want to market because they see that the adoption is huge and the community is growing.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. All fair point. Thanks, Emil, Farooq. And Alekos, would you like to try and unmute yourself and see where we are?
Yeah, let's try again. Really sorry. Now I'm back on Wi-Fi. This should work great, unless it drops, like sometimes it does. So let's hope it doesn't happen during my talk.
Okay, so the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So I'm gonna screen share. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So, well, first of all, thanks for having me today. Today I'm going to be talking about the power of Bitcoin scripting. It is kind of a technical talk because I'm a really technical person, but really the goal of this is to try to give an overview, maybe try to clear some misconceptions people have about how actually powerful scripting on Bitcoin is. So how can we do some kind of smart contracts on Bitcoin as well? And the first part is going to be, I think, very, very easy to follow. Maybe later on a little bit more technical, but we'll see how it goes. And again, I really want to make the first part very, very easy to understand. So I'm going to go maybe back a few steps. Probably many of you already know about this. But in Bitcoin, we have addresses. and addresses are usually the thing you give to somebody else when you want to get paid. And well, usually you just see that as kind of like a postal address, like a way to give the direction for the payment to reach you. But in fact, in Bitcoin, addresses are used to lock funds to a set of spending conditions. So basically, the address itself, so that string with a lot of weird letters and numbers, this is the spending condition that you are kind of using to lock your funds. So it's like creating a safe or a vault that you give the other person, and they put funds into this, and then written on this safe, there is the condition that you need to satisfy in order to take funds out of this address. And most of the time, most of the people are familiar with the classic single sig wallet, which means you have a single key, and the condition is produce a digital signature from this key in order to spend. But as we'll see later, you can do a lot more than this. Also in Bitcoin, we have transactions. Transactions are a way to move funds from an address to another. So essentially, a transaction is opening a vault or a safe and taking funds out of it and sending it to a different one, to a different safe. It could also be the same one. So you can also make a transaction that spends from an address and sends to the same address. Obviously, most of the time you don't, but see that's possible. And since a transaction, let's say, opens a vault, so opens this safe, it contains inside the data that are needed to satisfy this spending condition. So you had this spending condition written on top of the safe, and the transaction includes what's generally called the witness, which is just a bunch of data. It depends on what the spending condition is that you can use to satisfy the spending condition. And so basically the Bitcoin network will accept your transaction because everybody can verify that you're not spending somebody else's money. You're actually really satisfying the condition. And just this term witness, maybe you might have already kind of heard it before. A few years back, we had the SegWit or segregated witness soft fork or let's say upgrade, and the witness part in that like name segregated witness is actually referred to basically this mostly signatures, but in general the data that we include in the transaction to satisfy the spending condition. With SegWit, that all of that data was, let's say, moved to a different section of the transaction, so it was segregated. But yeah, there are some technical reasons why we do that. That's not really important. Just wanted to kind of create this connection in case you already had heard about the witness term. And this is kind of a diagram that represents what's happening again. So we have these vaults that are the addresses. We have transactions moving funds into a vault, from a vault into another, and the transaction carry with them usually a signature, but whatever data you need to satisfy the condition. Now, Bitcoin has some sort of a programming language that you can use to express these conditions. So inside the address is, let's say, like a compressed version, we could say, of that. And this is actually very powerful. So most people are familiar when they think about smart contracts, they think about Ethereum and Solidity and all these very complex languages that exist. And those are technically more powerful than what Bitcoin uses. And I don't think it was an oversight from Satoshi to build the Bitcoin scripting in this way. So the Bitcoin scripting language has a lot of advantages compared to those. But anyway, usually most people think with Bitcoin you can't really do a lot unless you need to switch to another chain. You need to switch to a more advanced chain to do more complex stuff. And this is, I don't think, true. Or maybe it is if you're doing super complex financial interactions. But for the average user, for most people, you can probably do, you can satisfy all of your needs just with Bitcoin. The problem with Bitcoin scripting is that it is kind of hard to use. And also more than hard, I should say, it's scary to use. So if you make a mistake there, so if you create the wrong spending condition, so the wrong like vault, you could either create a vault from which anybody can spend. So you basically you put money into this vault and then somebody steals them from you because you didn't secure it enough, I would say. Or which is probably what's more likely to happen, you could create a vault that even you can't open. So basically you lock funds in a kind of unspendable address. You can't take them out anymore. So developing this stuff is pretty hard. It's something that really it's done when you maybe like design a new protocol. You design the Lightning Network protocol, for instance. So you develop the set of Bitcoin scripts that you need to power Lightning, but it's not something that, like, you're a developer, you're making an app using Bitcoin and you develop your own. Because yeah, it's kind of hard and also very scary. But luckily nowadays, a lot of really useful tools are being developed. So I think we could kind of make a parallel with like developing video games in the 80s, many years ago. So back then it was very, very hard. You had to use like writing low-level code and optimizing for performance. Otherwise, your game wouldn't run at all. Nowadays, we have like Unity and all these very powerful frameworks that are super easy to use. And so over time, the basically making games is getting more and more accessible to, I would say, average developer, not necessarily average people, but at least average developers. And nowadays we also have many more games, probably much more complex, much more advanced than we had back then, also thanks to that. So the same, I think, is happening on Bitcoin. We are getting to a point where we have the right tools that make it easy, at least for developers, to actually use the Bitcoin scripting language to its true power. And I think this is going to show in the next few years with many like products being developed that make use of this. So I'm going to start with the kind of technical part, but still I'm going to try to keep it very high level. So Bitcoin scripting is, I would say, made by a few like building blocks that you can piece together to produce the condition you want. So again, this is like the spending condition you are setting for your vault, for your lock that you need to satisfy in order to take the money out. So one of the building blocks, the main building blocks, I would say, is the key signature like pair. So you can basically put a public key on your vault, and then you say if you produce a digital signature with this key, with the private key corresponding to this public key, you can satisfy this block. And this is the main one. Single sig addresses are basically built just with this, but you can also use that as part of a more complex condition. We also have hash preimages. These are mainly used in layer 2 protocols, I would say. So for instance, they are heavily used in Lightning, also if you make atomic swaps. And basically what it means is that you have a secret and you can put a hash, which is, if you're not familiar with it, kind of a fingerprint of your secret. So something that you can use to verify that if I show you the secret, you can say, oh yeah, this is definitely the right secret, but you can't go the other way. So if you only have the hash, you can't derive the secret. You can only check if a secret is right. So you can have this like hash preimage pair. Preimage is basically the secret, where you can lock funds and say, if you show me the right secret, you can take your money out. And this is again used heavily in layer 2 protocols. You also have time locks. These are really, really cool, I think. You have absolute and relative time locks. So this is just basically saying your money cannot be spent unless you wait some time. And you can specify this sometime part in a couple of different ways. So you can specify it as an absolute point in time. So you can say this money cannot be spent until, I don't know, like January 1st, 2022, for instance. So this is like a date or a block height, but a specific absolute point in time. But I think what's even cooler is the relative part of that. So the relative time locks, which is basically a kind of an offset in time from the moment the transaction is received, let's say, into the address, kind of. So you could say you can spend money 2 months after you've received them. You don't know when you're going to receive them. And also you can do this kind of cool trick where if you need to reset this time, you can spend, you can create a transaction that spends those funds and sends them back to the same address. So you can like reset the time because this is now a new transaction that you've received. So the time lock kind of restarts. And this is very useful, in my opinion, in many real world like scenarios, use cases. And then finally, you have like the logic, I would say. So basically like the glue that pieces everything together. So you can have the logical or the logical end. So you could say you need to sign with this key or this one, or you need to sign with this key and this one. So you need both of them. I also have like conditional logic. You can say if this happens, like if you produce a signature with this, then I'm also going to check that you do this other thing. And you can do like everything together using those. Some practical examples of what you can do. Well, naturally, there are single signatures, which are very easy, very simple. Then we can start with multi-signatures, which are actually pretty common. I think most people at least have usually heard of them, maybe used them. You can have like N of N multi-signatures, which means you have a set of keys and you need to sign with all of them. Or you can also have K of N, or sometimes it's called M of N, where you have like a threshold. So you need to sign with at least, at least 2 out of 3 of the keys you have. But usually with multi-sigs, you have this kind of trade-off where you have to decide between having a very high threshold, which generally gives you more security. So if you have like a 5 of 5, you have a very strong security. You can store physically these keys or these devices in 5 different places. But the point is, if you lose even one of those, your funds are lost, because you need all of them. You need all, let's say, 5 keys in order to spend from your address. So on the other hand, you could try lowering the threshold, but if you go too low, like if you go to a 2 of 5, then it's I can just steal 2 of your devices out of all the 5 you have, and I can steal your money just with those 2. So you have this kind of trade-off, and I think what I call time decaying multi-sigs, I think it's kind of a term that I invented myself. I don't know if other people call them this way, but this is, I think, solves this problem. It's basically a K of N multi-sig, but with a variable K that like decreases over time. So you could say, initially when you receive funds, those funds are like protected by 5 keys, all of your 5 keys. You need all of them to spend. But after a year, this drops down to 4, and maybe after 5 more years, this drops down to 3. You could do something like that. And this means that if you lose 1 key, you just wait a year, and then you can spend your money then. Also inheritance, like vaults or inheritance addresses. This is basically when you could say you have an address where one specific key can always spend. So it basically acts as a single sig wallet for that key, but you also have another set of key, which could be a multi-sig, that can spend if you don't move your money for a long time. So basically, like if let's say I have 2 children and I have my own money and I want them to get access to those, like when I die. So I could have my own key that can always spend, so I can do whatever I want with my money, and I don't have to give them my key, which would expose me to the risk of them like stealing my money today. But I could have 2 of 2 or a 1 of 2 of their keys, and say if I don't move my funds for a year, then they can spend them automatically. So I don't have to transfer any key. They keep their own keys. I don't know their private keys, and they don't know mine. But we can create this like complex vault that automatically kind of hands them over my money if I don't touch them for a year. And so as long as I'm alive, I'm just gonna periodically, I'm probably gonna spend my money just for my own expenses. But even if I don't need to do anything, I could just spend this money and, as I was saying before, send them back to the same address to reset the timer to a year. And I could do that as long as I'm alive, to keep them to basically keep them only accessible to myself. Now this gets into the bit more of a, again, technical stuff. I was talking about building blocks because I like to think about, kind of like a puzzle, like stuff that you piece together. So a while back, I made this graphical editor, I like to call it, that you can use to basically build those, I like to call them policies, like spending policies or spending conditions. This is a website that I'm going to show the URL later. You can go to this website, you can literally like drag and drop blocks and build whatever you want. So for instance, on the left, there is the easiest example, which is just a single sig. So the condition is you need a key, and keys usually have like an alias name because it's like a placeholder. Then in the place of the placeholder, it's going to go the real key. But when you think in an abstract sense about the policy, you don't really need to know what the key is going to be, the exact like value. So you can think about aliases. So you can say you need this one key. In this case, it's called Alice that needs to sign, and then you can spend the money. Or you could make this like threshold blocks. So a threshold block contains many sub blocks, and you specify how many of these needs to be satisfied in order to spend from the vault from the address. So in this case, you need to satisfy at least 2 of the 3 blocks. So in this case, it's 3 keys, Alice, Bob, and Carol. So it's basically a multi-sig at 2 of 3. On the right, it's the time decaying multi-sig I was talking before, which is again built using the threshold block. And basically the like older block that's on the bottom, this is not really something that you satisfy yourself. It's something that automatically is satisfied after a while. In this case, it's expressed as a block height. So if I did the math right, the first one should be 1 month and the other one should be 1 year. So the point is you need to satisfy 3 of the whatever blocks you have in there. In this case, you have 3 keys and 2 time locks. So initially the 2 time locks before the first month passes, the 2 time locks are not like usable, they're not satisfied. So the only option you have is you need to sign with all the 3 keys. Then after a month, you have the option of signing with 2 keys and also like using the older block, because now that time lock has expired. So now you can kind of use it in a way. So you can sign with 2 keys and then use that, and you reach the threshold of 3. And after a year, you can use the other one as well. So you can just sign with 1 key and use in a way the 2 other blocks. And just to show you, this is probably a bit more complex to understand, but since I've also mentioned the like inheritance thing, this is one example of how you would encode that policy. So you have 1 key that can always spend. You have at the root, you have like an OR. So you have 2 conditions and both of them can be used to spend. And the way it is used just to like optimize the size to reduce the fee, but it's not really relevant to the policy itself. It's just an optimization that you can do. So you have this OR, so grandpa can always spend. Or the alternative is an AND. So now you need both of them. And you need, in this case, it was 1 of 2. So you have 2 keys, but just 1 of them is enough to satisfy that. But since it's an AND, you need to satisfy the threshold and the time lock. So this is, again, a bit more complex, probably takes, if you're not a developer, maybe this looks very weird to you. But still, this is, I think, still something that is much, much easier to use than writing manually Bitcoin scripting stuff. So essentially, this is the URL where you can find the graphical playground. The graphical editor is called Playground on the Bitcoin Dev Kit website. The graphic is not great. We've redesigned the whole website recently, and that page particularly, it's not really polished yet, but it works. So it might look broken, but it's actually working. I'm gonna fix it soon. And yeah, as I said, you can use that to like play around with this. You can create graphically your spending policy that you want, and then you can use many, not really that many now, but there are many being developed, wallets and libraries that supports descriptors to then like complete the circle in a way. So now with the graphical editor, you can create a high-level overview. You can say, yeah, I want to be able to sign with this key, and you get this thing which is called a descriptor that contains this information. And then you can use those libraries like BDK, which is the project I'm working on, Miniscript as well, which we use in BDK, or Bitcoin Core, but that only supports nowadays at least a subset of descriptors. So they're working on integrating Miniscript in Bitcoin Core as well. But if you try it today, it's going to support just a subset of those. And you can use those libraries, tools, wallets, whatever, to you basically just give them the descriptor, and they know how to generate addresses, how to spend from an address, and not. So this is obviously more targeted to developers, not really like the average user. But as a developer, you can now, with these tools, you can, I think, very easily create a lot of powerful products. So I would love to see, like as I was mentioning before, a wallet that very easily offers you the option of having a time decaying multi-sigs or something like that. And I believe over the next few years, somebody's going to develop it thanks to these tools that many people, and myself included, are building. So I think this is it. Essentially, the idea was just to kind of show how powerful Bitcoin can be, even though there's this misconception that it's not really. I hope there's some developers listening to this that gets interested in this and hopefully use this information to build better products for the future.
Excellent. Amazing, Alekos. Thanks, Emil, for that. That was indeed very original. So thank you very much. Dimitris?
Oh, it's dark here.
Yeah, so
I'm going to turn on the light. Sorry.
So people should type their questions into the YouTube chat. So let me start. There is no question yet, so let me start. Today, wallets support at most multi-sig, right? Nothing more clever than that. So I don't think there's any wallet that supports time locks in the user interface. And if you use the simple addresses today, you just need to back up your seed phrase, right? And maybe your derivation path. But as soon as you do anything more clever than that, like multi-sig, now your backup requirements change, right? Because not only your backup requirements, but also documentation. And so I think what you showed in the last slide was that how you are helping with the UI and the documentation part. Do you want to talk a little bit more about any backup requirements that people will have once they start using any more clever scripting?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So in general, you need to back up every key naturally, but also the structure itself of your condition. So basically, in a way, like taking a screenshot of that editor would be enough because that's deterministic. So if you reproduce the same, you put the blocks in the same way, you should get the same address then in the end. But that's true. On top of the keys that you need to back up securely, you also need to back up that as well. The way I see this playing out in the future, I think at least most wallets that are going to take advantage of those tools, they're not really going to show the users that. They're not going to tell the user back up this very long, or not really long, but decently long string of random characters because that's going to be pretty complex. They're basically just going to tell you, remember that you are using this wallet and that you decided to do a 2 of 3 with a time decay of a year. So this is like a phrase. It's very easy even to write down because it was the name of the wallet, how many keys there were, what was the threshold, and the time you decided to pick which you could choose. And with that information alone, if you go back to the same wallet, you can recreate everything. Or if the wallet is open source, even if that specific wallet dies, somebody can very easily make a tool that just looks at the code and see what's the structure and then recreates it outside. And somebody mentioned it here in the chat in Zoom that Blockstream Green uses time locks, and that's true. So basically they have a 2 of 2 with a time lock that after a while becomes a 1 of 2 where only the user can spend. So by default, it's you plus the server, so you get the 2FA like protection. And after a while, it becomes just a user. And the way they solve the backup issue is they just tell you, remember that you've created this mnemonic on Blockstream Green. So when you need to recover the funds, remember that you can't go to a random wallet. You need to go back to Blockstream Green or use our Python recovery tool specifically. So I think this is how like many wallets would handle that, or at least wallets targeted to average users. For technical users, they can just back up the old descriptor, maybe put that into a QR code, and that's enough. But it's not probably reasonable for average users because that looks very complicated.
Thank you. So there are a couple of questions in the YouTube chat. Can you see them? Or I can read them to you.
No, yeah, I'm not on YouTube. So if you could read them.
So someone is asking, if I change the rule, to who inherit, do I have to create a new wallet?
Maybe, I guess, yeah, I think the question was like if you create a wallet that is designed to let my children inherit those, and then I want to change it afterwards if I need to create a different one. And if that's the question, the answer is yes. So basically, you can create a whole wallet, but that wallet only has essentially one spending condition underneath. So if you want to change that, you will need to create a new wallet and migrate like your funds to the other one. I hope. I don't know. I could open YouTube now, so I see the other questions.
There's one more from Yellow, so I can read it if you want.
Okay, how possible is this one, or did I miss?
Yeah, that's the one.
So I see. Okay, how possible is it to create a microloan contract system using this? I have no idea because I'm not really an expert in this, like financial contracts. I think you can actually do a lot of powerful stuff. So I can't like right now answer that. I would have to think about it. But I remember one example of a very cool trick some people were doing were basically a betting system on the hash rate. So you could bet on the hash rate increasing or decreasing. And that was completely trusted, completely on chain. And they were doing this by basically playing with the time lock. So for instance, you can specify the time lock as a block height or as a timestamp date. And since like when the hash rate goes up, the block rate decreases a little bit. So instead of the usual 10 minutes, it gets like maybe 9 minutes and something. So with this like difference, with the fact that I can say, I'm expecting with the, if the hash rate stays constant, I'm expecting this point in time to happen at this specific height. But if the hash rate increases, the block time decreases. And so that point in time actually happens at a higher block height, or vice versa. If the hash rate decreases, it happens before. So you can play with this and make a contract that is like a betting contract on whether the hash rate goes up or down. I don't remember the name, but I've saw them doing it. So I think you can do a lot of really cool stuff. I'm not like an expert in this like financial contracts, and so I can't answer for that. But yeah, the point of this presentation was exactly to show that if you have the tools, the right tools to build the stuff, I think a lot of really cool things are gonna be developed in the next few years.
Thank you. I think these are all the questions we have here.
Alekos, grazie mille. Thanks, Emil, for all that. And
thank you.
And hope you can stick around for the rest of the meetup. And last but not least, I want to hand it over to our friends in Athens and wish καλή επιτυχία to Andreas and Aris, who will basically present to us the next presentation. Dimitris, over to you.
Actually, it's over to Andreas.
Yeah, sure.
Sure thing.
Thanks, Monis and Dimitris. Let me switch on sharing for the presentation. Okay. Is it coming through all right?
Yes, we can see everything.
Great. So it's really, really great being here and listening to all the previous presenters with so many interesting things about Bitcoin. We are going to talk about our own journey with Lightning and Bitcoin, and we are going to assume that everybody knows about Bitcoin. So just a quick introduction with Lightning. So Lightning is an off-blockchain peer-to-peer network that is used between participants for micropayments. The network, Lightning Network, supports instant transactions, and what's important to note is that it has a massive throughput collectively as a network, much higher than people usually discuss and compare with Visa or MasterCard. Now, one essential principle of Lightning is that participants lock their funds on chain and the balance of these funds, of the sum of these funds, becomes available via channels that are created on the Lightning Network. That allows the participants between them to make unlimited transactions during the channel's lifetime. And one very important characteristic that Lightning introduces is that participants' transactions are private between them, which is something that of course has some way to go still for Lightning. Now, one very interesting facet of Lightning that also attracted us was that transactions can carry payloads. That means that a sender can encapsulate a payload within a transaction, and when the recipient gets the actual Bitcoin via Lightning money, they can unwrap the transaction and read what's inside. So at the same time, the concept of key send or invoiceless transactions was introduced. That means that somebody can initiate a transaction, a one-way transaction, without requiring a request for a payment or an invoice issuing. This is also very interesting for us. Now, the payload, something very important is that the payload that goes into a transaction eventually inherits the security of the transaction itself. And that's a very important asset that goes with it. Now, when we talk about payloads, we actually mean a payload of around 1 kilobyte per transaction. So while that seems like a very low amount of bytes there, it is plenty to do a lot of stuff if you don't think about media content, okay? And it was just the thing that got us very interesting and started so that we start experimenting around 2019. So the idea of C13 was brought up and at the time, and we thought, why not make the money, in this case, the transactions and Bitcoin, the medium of communication itself. This way we started, we found support from our company Programize, and we started experimenting and building an application that was essentially the first use case that we did. So we fused messaging with micropayments. It was a chat application initially was WhatsApp and what most people know now as Sphinx, eventually as Sphinx, that sends and receives messages among other things over Lightning. As time passed, it was a journey for us, and it was very difficult to develop on the protocol, as there is no the toolkits and support is really minimal. So you have to try 9 times to get it right the 10th. And that led us to think that as we developed the backend and the front end for testing out things, why not make the library or eventually the development toolkit available also for other developers in the community to develop their own Lightning apps. And that's where we focused in the past months. So today, C13 is a development toolkit. Think of it as a component that sits on top of Lightning, and specifically LND at this moment, and provides some ready features for use. So with a kit, you can send and receive payloads and messages. You can do payments either invoiceless or with invoice requests. keep history and accounting of the communication that goes on with the concept of discussions, and keep a local address book with the participants of discussions, and other essential node operations like adding peers or opening channels and getting wallet info, that things that help with onboarding users and onto Lightning, which is a bit hard at this moment. Some things that are coming up in the following releases are pay-as-you-go paywalls and streaming payments, as well as some initial mechanism for authentication use cases. And the question is, what can the development community do with these? Okay, so you have payloads and payments. This can work in various areas. So you could have machine-to-machine communication that would have an autonomous IoT fleet communicating with each other without centralized servers. Or you could have streaming payments for charging your electric car by the watt and not by just invoices. Or you could get paid for watching ads while you browse something or use an application. Or you could take your API and transform it to a pay-as-you-go API so that people consume it by the request. There are also other use cases that are related with Lightning infrastructure and the use of resources provided by nodes, which are very, very useful to add for other smart use cases above Lightning, on top of Lightning. All this time, as I mentioned before, we were also developing a messaging application that we call ARC, and this was also was necessary because we wanted a test bed for what we were doing. So it is now our reference implementation. It's our reference use case. It uses the C13 API exclusively. And of course, all messages are payments, but as a front end, you don't feel that. But we also support other important stuff like payment requests. And as you see the bottom corner, messages and satoshis are combined, and you can use or send them either solely or by combination. We have also implemented a group chatting feature, which interestingly is Lightning only, on Medium only. And this is something important, as we have as our principle not to go off Medium as much as possible. So what we want to offer to other developers like us is the ability to focus on their idea mostly, and the product that they want to develop, and not so much with the Lightning intrinsics. So C13 offers a toolkit that makes things easier for them to build a Lightning application. They consume it via a simple API over RPC, and it has good documentation, so it's easy to start with. Our principles always remain that we are Bitcoin focused, and we don't want to go out of Lightning as much as possible. So even if we do go off Medium, it's only to extend the flow, and enough Medium use would never constitute a separate flow that doesn't also use on Medium interaction. We believe that on Medium enhances decentralization, and that's a good thing. We also strongly believe in interoperability. We envision a future where Lightning applications, different Lightning applications, can talk to each other and versus walled gardens like we have in Web 2.0. So I'm going to pass over the presentation now to Aris, who is going to go through a bit more technical details about the implementation we have built so far. Ari?
Hello from me as well. Sorry about the dark room. Our implementation, despite the constraints on size due to the medium and nature, allows sending payloads inside the payments, inside the Onion payload, which can be used to develop applications and services that take advantage of both the secure transmission of the payloads and the dual nature of them as payments. In the next slide, it might be obvious, but on the network, a node can be uniquely identified by their public key as kind of an address, if you will. A key objective for us was to transmit data, as mentioned previously, only over inside Lightning payments in the Onion payload, without relying on out-of-band communication or the peer-to-peer gossip protocol, despite the constraints of size, as mentioned. Despite the fact that service requests are stateful on our API, with discussions being the state, mostly, the payloads sent over Lightning inside the payment are stateless. Another key consideration we had was also the amount of fees charged for a payment to be controllable, to be able to limit them. Although I think this was covered previously, payments can be both solicited with a corresponding invoice at the receiving end, and spontaneous, with that being an opt-in feature at the receiving end, which means that if you send to a receiving node that doesn't support it, he might decline. We can send payloads to both types, which is supported. There's also the ability to validate the generator of a payload via a signature linked to their public key, which functions as a way to validate the identity of the sending node of a payload. What we would like to add, Adra? We would like to add support for quite a few things in the future, in light of the fact that Lightning is constantly evolving and its features are under constant development, such as support for AMP instead of key send for spontaneous payments. Now that LND has enabled recurring AMP invoices, pseudo-recurring. Extend daemon support to include C Lightning as a backend, as a daemon, sorry. And support recurring payments, whether that be the aforementioned LND pseudo-recurring or Bolt 12 proposal of offers in C Lightning, from C Lightning. While on the interaction with the traditional web, as a Web 2 on and off ramp, you might say, LSAT is a standard we would like to support for anonymous paid authorization via the 402 HTTP code. And the subset or the whole of LNURL protocol for ease of interaction with the normal world. Well, in light of the fact that the space is emerging and constantly evolving, we would be remiss not to mention some things we struggled with along the way, as it might help others that would like to keep their hands dirty. We have settled on a flexible storage and development model in order to accommodate future changes. We also do and would suggest for anyone to do to stay up to date with new features and figure out if and how they can enable you to build functionality on top. Also, don't be discouraged when diving into technical, whether that be protocol or implementation details, if they seem convoluted. That is from me, and now back to Andreas.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. So our next steps with C13 is, first of all, to the open sourcing of the development kit. We've been preparing the open sourcing to the community since the beginning of the project, and we always thought that it's something that we should give back as we build it. Saying that, although we have to learn about the process of turning it to open source, which is a bit more. It requires a bit more effort than saying it. So we are in the process in the following weeks of opening the kit to the public. In parallel with that, we are also evaluating a business model that could be built around that, or in the side of at the side of this. That would essentially be most probably linked with some use cases of services that could be implemented on the Lightning Network, and they could work in conjunction with the C13 toolkit, or independently, or both. But the top priority for us is always to keep the C13 development kit up to date, make it more robust, and offer the most the most capabilities to the developers that want to build on Lightning. We have, I have to show the fantastic team we have all this time since 2019, and the great support also from the team from Programize who support this project. And if you want to have more questions, if you want to have more information about this at the moment, you can head to c13.io and read a bit more things about it. But most essentially, stay tuned, because we are going to publish a lot of things in the following weeks. Thank you very much for hearing us out.
All right, thanks, Andreas. So there are a couple of questions from the YouTube chat. So someone is asking, what apps can be built with this structure? I think you had a slide on that.
Yes, let me share it again quickly. There we go. So it's hard. Well, when you start with Lightning, it's hard to think of new use cases, and you keep on pressing yourself to transform or mutate existing use cases that are not decentralized into decentralized mode. And this is really hard, to be honest. As it was also hard for us to think of use cases. But once you get to know the technology more, and you dive into it, and start combining concepts in your mind, and actually see them working, you start thinking of use cases that would come to fruition. Well, that doesn't mean exactly that they would immediately also bring in revenue, but they are very interesting for the future. And with the exponential growth of Bitcoin and Lightning as a technology and as a currency, it's just plain to see that some concepts here on this slide are going to start emerging. They are already starting. We believe we are in a phase now with with Lightning that most people just come on board. If you notice, for example, the adoption rate of Umbrella as a node this year, it has been exponential, and it has helped also the network grow, among other things, of course. Okay, so just to complete my answer, you know, there is no direct answer to what you can build, but you can build almost everything as long as the answer is to start playing with the technology and see where it gets you, because it will get you somewhere definitely.
Good. So just a very two quick questions. One is,
sure,
can you bring up Moscow time closer so that everyone can see it?
Now it's showing the Bitcoin's mining power. It has reached 160 exahashes again. So we're doing good.
So it's not displaying Moscow time right now. Never mind. So the second question is, you told me before how the obvious choice for someone would be to start developing this in other blockchains, such as Ethereum and so on. But you guys started from these other blockchains and settled on Lightning and Bitcoin. And that's a very important message. If you could just spend a few minutes talking about this.
Sorry, I didn't hear you well. Could you repeat, please?
Yes, so you told me before how you guys looked at implementing these things in other blockchains, such as Ethereum, but you settled for Bitcoin and Lightning on purpose. Could you spend a few minutes talking about this transition and why Lightning is better for you?
Right, absolutely. So we didn't actually try to build the same thing on Ethereum. We had explored Ethereum at around 2017 as a technology, and we have tried some proof of concepts there. And the constant problem that we had with Ethereum and other blockchains was that the evolution was so quick, and the things were changing and breaking all the time. So the extreme pace of changes and breaks on Ethereum was absolutely mind-boggling to follow, and that did not allow us to focus, because the technology is new. Okay, there is no infrastructure, no tools to build stuff. So as a developer, you need time to focus on something and build something good. That was a problem with blockchains apart from Bitcoin. Bitcoin has this stability. It does a few things very well, and this is a good thing. And you have Lightning on top, or even another layer 2 technologies that are coming up slowly, that have a faster pace, but they also have it's more possible to follow evolution. So that's the reason.
All right, I think these were all the questions we had.
Excellent, excellent. Andreas, Aris, thanks Emil for the effort that you put in place in order to have this presented to us. Again, this is epic and very original. So we really thank you for the education and the knowledge that you've shared with the rest of the communities today, and everyone else as well. And I think now it's also a good time for me to thank Yanis and Aris, who are also helping out with the streaming, the other Aris from the GCC, as well as George from Greece as well, who's helping out with what we're doing today. And I think it's also a good moment for us to wrap it up. The content of what was presented today here was legendary, if you ask me. And, you know, we've touched base on many, many original topics. And I'm sure that even the most skilled or knowledgeable person in this space have learned something today. So we've definitely added value here today. And I just want to thank all the presenters that have, put their own personal time to make this happen, along with the community leaders, which have helped in, organizing the third global Bitcoin meetup. So Michael has basically, put in place something like an after party, and we'll try to post that link on YouTube chat, and we can just all join and say a couple of stuff offline if you guys prefer. But before we wrap it up, I'm just going to hand it over to each person for each communities for some last words and basically your message to the communities. And maybe we can start by order to which the presentations got presented. So Farooq, if I can just hand it over to you, for some last few words, and then we'll continue, by the order of each presentation by each country.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Monis, and thank you all the community members and all the communities all over the world. We are doing some great stuff. It's a God's work, I would say, promoting Bitcoin and Bitcoin education all over the world. And it is changing the world. We are no longer living in the old world that was run by fiats and these corrupt banking network systems and governments who have been robbing people out. So this is a new world where it's a more decentralized and open world where you have everyone have financial accesses similar on equal levels, no matter where you live, which country you live. Developing nations, countries like Pakistan and other countries have same opportunities as compared to the developed world. So this is very, very important and very good work. And I would like to thank everyone from the listeners, from all the channels. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Mario, would you like to say a few words as well?
Hey guys, I just want to thank you again for organizing this meetup. I want to thank all the speakers. I really enjoyed your presentation, folks, all of you. I learned a lot. So as Moni said, it was definitely helpful. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. I respect what you do for community. As Farooq said, as Ahmed said, it's respectable work. It's God's work to spread ideas about open source tools, and you are all who are here on the stream or listening, you're all invited to Prague, so come around to have a Bitcoin cafe with us sometime. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Michael?
Yeah, thanks very much for organizing this and for the viewers. It's always important also for us to have good content for meetups, even if it's virtual ones, because we have some reach with our meetup group also into the more general tech community and strong impressions about this blockchain technology thing. So I think it's good to show them what Bitcoin is really about. So thanks for the talks. And thanks for organizing. Excellent. And thanks for the viewers and listeners.
Super. Alekos?
Oh, I'm terrible at this. So Federico would have probably been better, but thank you so much for the invite. I know I was honored to represent Milan in Italy at this event. It was also very inspiring. As Mario said, I went to Prague twice, but hearing him talk about his basically his experience and the motivation behind Paralenil Polis, I kind of want to open one in Italy as well. So I'm once again thinking about doing it. Maybe Mario will contact you privately for help if I decide to do it. So yeah, it was great. So yeah. Sorry?
Super. No, I think there was a bit of a glitch there, but okay, yeah. Alekos, thanks Emil for your kind words, and thank you for being here. And last but not least, Dimitris.
Well, I don't have to say much. I mean, this was a great meetup and presentations, and I particularly like the fact that there were both introductory topics for people to understand why Bitcoin is important, but also technical stuff that are very interesting to developers and geeks and everyone who fell down the rabbit hole. So looking forward to the next global Bitcoin meetup.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And at this point, Michael or anyone else, were we able to post the link for the after party on the chat, or?
I've already posted it. We can do it again.
Okay. Okay.
I'll post it on Zoom as well in case people don't find it.
I just want to say from my end, thank you very much again once more for all the efforts that you put in place in order to make this happen. And I hope that right after this, we've all got friends in Milan or Munich or Pakistan or Prague and Greece, and we're able to smash all those boundaries that keep us holding us up from meeting in person with COVID. I hope that when we do kind of smash all those boundaries, we were able to meet like face to face, and we managed to get a friendship going and communication and everything that comes along with that. So until the next global Bitcoin meetup, thank you all very much, and we'll see you very well soon.
Goodbye.
Rappers like to rock chains, I rock blockchains, knock 'em out the box, I'm on Doc's main. Key ring full of wallet data. I gotta pray that my ASIC incinerators blow the mind like a creeper one time in my circus divine. A fine way to keep the power bill in check. My equipment is starting to sweat from the heat. Cryptoanarchy becoming a threat.